So today we're just kind of kicking off construction of North Cheyenne Street project. There has been a tremendous amount of public input on this, but we are going to continue to engage the public and take feedback and try to get a great project going forward. Topics today: history, purpose. We're going to go over cost and timeline as well, and also get into the probably I think what a lot of people here are interested in, and how we're going to deal with this construction project when it's here. And then we're also going to provide some details on how you can keep notified as it moves forward. By the way, my name is Tim Solberg. I'm the new Assistant City Administrator here. I've been the Planning Director for a number of years, so a lot of background as to how we got here. We're going to have Dustin Scott, our City Engineer, speaking today, Lauren Orchard, our Economic Development Director, Jim Larson, our Finance Director, and Chief Otterness, the Police Chief. And of course, at any time, please interrupt me if you have a question, or any of us as well. So the history of the project, we really got going on this as part of our downtown efforts to kind of revitalize some of the area. There was a lot of push from past commissions and the public to have our cultural core in our community a place where we felt that we were proud of a downtown that had businesses thriving, that had people wanting to come down there. So we got to work on a lot of different projects. We had a downtown framework study that was done. We did some new zoning districts downtown. But as we kept looking at development projects, we heard from developers and we heard from engineers that one of the big issues was the street. And so as we looked at the street, there was a lot of things that were good about it. It was moving traffic and all these things that you like for a commuter road, but it wasn't so good for downtown development. So we got to work on designing a potential project for that. We worked with KLJ Engineering on a corridor study. They looked at traffic impacts and stopping, parking, all these sorts of different things that we typically would do on a larger scale project before we would get it done, and we let it sit for a little bit. And then the governor came out with a new grant program, urban grant program that was aimed at getting more development in core areas of town. It was part of the Main Street Initiative. And we put together a grant application and applied for that, and we were the first awardee of that grant, and it really pushed us into actually getting this project done. As we kept looking at it, there became apparent need after we did a core infrastructure study that we would need to update the infrastructure in there, and that has added a little bit of scope to the project. I'd say maybe a lot of scope to the project, but that's part of the process of starting to design a project. You find out that there's more to it sometimes than meets the eye, and so that's kind of where we are today and how we got to where we're going. And then, again, the project history, we've been doing feedback for a long time, but most recently, the last input meeting was January 2019. We did have some more input meetings through the COVID times that were a little bit more difficult to handle. But at that time, the estimated project cost was $3.6 million, and it's kind of gone up since there. So I'm going to let Dustin kind of go into a little bit more of the project history and some of those meetings and where we got to where we are today.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everyone. My name is Dustin Scott. I am the city engineer. I will pick up where Tim left off and touch on the project history. The public meeting we had back in September of 19 was our second public open house type meeting. We went through project details, project scope at that time. As the project was in its early stages, we were really focused on the surface enhancements. The transitioning the street into more of what you see out there with the Pioneer Place and Cheyenne Plaza developments that have occurred, where it accommodates the downtown redevelopment activities that have been going on. At the time, our estimated costs were $5.4 million, and really at that time we were also starting to look at possibly adding the intersection at 7th Avenue into the construction. So where Tim mentioned prior that we had an estimate of just over $3 million, adding the 7th Avenue intersection work, and it's difficult to see on this map here, but that really did add another couple $1 million. However, then we quickly learned after the completion of the core area infrastructure master plan that the underground utilities underneath Cheyenne Street from 7th Avenue to Main Avenue were in dire need of replacement. So shortly after our public meeting in September, we regrouped ourselves and re-scoped the project to be a complete full reconstruction. We did drop out the intersection at 7th Avenue. However, we did add full replacement of the underground facilities. Fast forward to April of last year. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we had to conduct a virtual meeting, but that is where we then shared with the public the intent to move forward with a full reconstruction project, basically just from the north side of the 7th Avenue intersection all the way up to Main. We did have the $2.3 million of federal grant from the DOT that we are still able to use, but again, the project cost significantly increased, as we'll get into in a couple slides here with our finance director. So here are just, again, some bullet points of prior public engagement. We, again, had our meeting in April of 2020. Soon after, we then started taking the project to the City Commission for formal actions, where the district was created in June. An engineer's report was reviewed in June, I believe, as well, and amended or updated in August of 2020. And at that point, our final plans and specifications were sent to the DOT, where they advertised the construction bids and opened up the bid letting in the middle of November. First meeting in December of last year is where the City Commission reviewed the results of those bids and awarded a contract to Dakota Underground. We did have another a meeting in the middle of December with our Special Assessment Committee to start reviewing options on how we could look at allocating the assessments over this district. This is a unique, complicated project, so we felt that bringing the Special Assessment Commissioners in early, which typically we engage them once the project is done. In this case, we wanted to get their thoughts early on. They didn't make any formal actions, but again, we were able to put their comments into what we consider now our pending assessments for this project. Which, by the way, the pending assessments have been published online and are available if you go to the city's tax information website. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tim on the purpose of the project.
Again, two very specific project purposes now. We went from one, which was really the streetscaping and sort of aesthetic appeal of downtown, to supporting our downtown economic impacts, to now adding this replacing aging infrastructure. In our opinion, and what we've presented to the Commission, the infrastructure is aging, it has problems. We have a study that proved that to us. So what our biggest concern was that we do this project and then have to come back in a few years, rip it up again, and go through this updating the aging infrastructure. So it became a two-pronged purpose for this project. Progress of downtown, I think it's becoming pretty clear that there is investment interest. What I look at this project as being is potentially a catalyst for more incremental growth. We've had a couple of really big projects and now a third. I believe that other smaller investors, when they see a road finished to this magnitude, they're going to have a lot more confidence in developing downtown. But we've had these great projects, Sheyenne Plaza, Pioneer Place, really changed how that area looked. Adding this parking is going to provide a lot better atmosphere down there and less parking issues, having on-street parking available. We do have a lot of work to do, and certainly it's nice to see some investment to push toward that. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dustin again.
So as I briefly mentioned earlier, the underground infrastructure out here was identified to be in critical condition and needed replacement. The photo you see here on the screen was taken in 2010 during a heavy rainfall that we had in June. And it's just a testament to, it's not just the asbestos water main and the age of the utility, but, you know, the capacity of the infrastructure out there is in dire need of being upgraded. So these next two slides, it's difficult to see all the detail, but we wanted to at least provide an updated exhibit of what this project is doing. This particular slide here shows where we are replacing the underground utilities. Blue is the water main, the orange is storm sewer, and green is sanitary sewer. And this next slide here is basically our layout of what the street is going to look like when we're all done. The dark shaded areas are where we are making these improvements. So you can see here that we're not just focused here on Sheyenne Street itself. There is some work being done on the side streets up and down the corridor here. I will say that this information is going to be available online, and if somebody also wants to make a request to get copies, certainly can do so by contacting the engineering department. We will certainly work within your needs to get you this information. So with that, I'm going to transition over to our Economic Development Director, Lauren Orchard.
Thank you, Dustin. So as both Dustin and Tim have mentioned already, a huge portion of this project from the beginning was really meant to help enhance our downtown, now known as the Yards, for our businesses, but also for our residents, to provide new amenities to that area. And we really do believe that the things that we add to this streetscape are important for business development as we go forward. Just seeing the picture that Dustin shared, we have had businesses down there since these big new investments have occurred that were really suffering from the current infrastructure that are there. And we've been in constant communication with those businesses about what this streetscape is going to look like and the benefits that are going to be seen underground as well. So actually, while we were working with the engineering department on the streetscape design, we were very conscious about the amenities that would be provided for our residents and our visitors and our businesses. And so some things that you may not generally associate with streetscape that you're going to see throughout the presentation today are these wonderful opportunities for other amenities like public art, street furniture as well, for people to sit and relax and enjoy downtown West Fargo. And we are using economic development sales tax for that portion of the project because these amenities will bring in future sales tax dollars by bringing in those visitors, bringing in the workforce that appreciates these amenities, and bringing in the business to our local shops that really produce that sales tax. Therefore, it's been feeding that revenue source as well. So we're very excited about how that's partnered. Another thing that I think that is very present in West Fargo is that we do need to continue to enhance our commercial tax base. We have a very strong residential component in our community, and every time we can help enhance our business locations and bring more foot traffic to our businesses, that continues to grow our downtown and that commercial development. So the more we can spur that commercial development, the healthier our tax base is. So we did want to show you what the streetscape is going to look like. It helps get our businesses excited. It helps get our residents excited. I'll just play this short video here. You'll see throughout this video that there are these bump out locations, which is what I was referring to, where we are going to see hopefully some future public art, permanent art fixtures, and we'll gain advice from our local businesses as well on what that should look like. And we'll also see some street furniture again to help increase the amenities in our downtown. And here are some other things just to note that we'll be adding to truly make this feel like a downtown and make it a significant location in West Fargo. And as I said, all of these amenities that we bring, they're not only for our businesses, or for the foot traffic that feeds those businesses. They're for our residents. It's for enjoying the public spaces that we've created, really helping people feel like they're at home in West Fargo. With that, I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you, Lauren. My name is Jim Larson. I'm Finance Director for the City of West Fargo. I'd like to talk about the funding of this project. As Dustin already pointed out, this project has continued to evolve as additional research and analysis has been completed with the project. Started at a $3.6 million, it's at a $10.45 million today. But there's basis for that change in scope and the improvements that will be made. Some of it is related to adding things like water and sewer, adding the economic development components, and also there's price creeps that happen along with as you bid. And that's what these numbers address. So total project, $10,450,000. Of that, the capital improvement sales tax funding will be used at $1.834 million. That's about 17.6% of the total project. The next is the economic development sales tax that Lauren talked about. That's going to be at the amount of $1.2 million. We have water and sewer utility fee revenues. So many of you are aware that we had fees increased here recently, and those fees are used to be able to cover these costs instead of special assessing them and helping them to reduce that burden to those that are right there close to the project. And that was the intent of our commission, and this project shows some of that success. The other part is the North Dakota DOT urban grant, $2.377 million. That's excellent. And one of the things with that grant is it has a sunset to it. So we do need to use those funds now, and that's one of the reasons you're seeing this project moved and brought forward, is that we don't want to lose that opportunity of those funds for the city of West Fargo. The last part is special assessments. Very sensitive area for most people. And Dustin has already indicated that that is out on the website, so if you want to be able to take a look at what your parcel is being assessed from this project, you're able to look at it. One of the significant components of that special assessment is that amount was set early in the project, when the project was a much smaller scope in total dollar amount. As we've had changes in scope and we've had changes in what needs to be included in this project, that assessment amount was not increased. It was held level, and it has not moved up. And that was, again, at the direction of commission and administration that we hold these costs down. So we have found other funding sources so we do not have to increase the assessment, like the economic development funds and also prairie dog funds. We're using $1 million of the prairie dog funds that are being received by the city of West Fargo. So that's the source and how the project is being funded. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Do want to point out that the assessments that are available online for all the property owners, those are, again, considered pending. There is a very specific process by which the city goes through at the end of a project to levy assessments. And so these pendings that are available to view, again, they're rough estimates. They're not final. That will not take place until the project is done and the city commission directs the assessments be levied. So, project timeline. We've had beautiful weather, and of course that leads to the opportunity to get started early on this project. Our contractor has indicated that they'd like to start next week, Monday, the 22nd. So that is partly what's prompted us to meet with everybody so early, but again, with good weather comes an opportunity to get started, and the earlier we can get started lends us the best chance to complete everything that we need to get done this year. The intent at this point is to start on the south side of the project, so just north of the 7th Avenue intersection, and work our way up to 4th Avenue. That scope of work is going to take us into July. That'll be again, all of what we consider to be this first phase, phase 1. Once all that work is done and we're ready to move on to phase 2, that work will take place from basically 4th Avenue to 2nd Avenue. And we're hoping to wrap that up by September. Move into phase 3, which will take us all the way up to Main Avenue. And our goal is to be done with the entire project basically by November. Might call on our police chief to help out with a couple of these next slides. To start it off with, I'll run through, there are really a couple of components here when we start talking about access and detours. I want to start by saying our primary concern at this point was a regional detour. So where do the majority of the traffic, the non-local traffic, where do they go? And in working with the DOT on this, we decided to detour everybody over to basically 9th Street. It's our next arterial corridor. So if there are truck traffic that, for example, that needs to come through the area, not make a stop in the local business area, they're going to be detoured over to 9th Street. That's a little hard again to see on these maps, but that is what we consider our regional detour. Safety is a big thing. Our next objective here, of course, is to maintain a safe work environment. Of course, there's construction standards in place, and the contractor has responsibilities and concerns to make sure that their site is certainly going to be safe and throughout all stages of construction. But again, I just wanted to focus that there are going to be a couple components here. This next slide is going to be a little bit more geared towards the business access and how do we get to a Thunder Coffee. But this first slide here is really meant to show you that our primary detour is to send people over to 9th. It's not to bring people up through here and detour them in through the neighborhoods. It's that mile jog to the east. So with that, I'll turn it over to, again, Lauren, and I'm sure our police chief wants to talk a little bit about our safety concerns.
Thanks, Dustin. Before Dennis gets going on safety, again, this is Lauren Orchard, Economic Development Director. I'd just like to talk about that business access. So we did want to be conscious about showing that our neighborhoods won't be absorbing all of the traffic that typically goes down Sheyenne Street, because we recognize that people live there and they want that area to be safe. But at the same time, we need to be in service of our local businesses that are going to see a reroute of that traffic around where they typically would be. And my bottom line message here is that you will always be able to access a business on Sheyenne Street. There will always be access maintained to our businesses, and that's what you see on this blue line here. And Dustin was going over those phases. And today we're only talking about phase 1 because we will be having a lot of these meetings about phase 2 and phase 3 detours as well. But for today, we just wanted to simplify it for that first phase. So I'll turn it over to Dennis.
Thanks, Lauren. Good afternoon, everybody. Dennis Ottertis, I'm the police chief here in West Fargo. And I don't have a lot of comments other than to say that we have been involved with all the other department heads in some of the planning for this project, and want everybody to know that public safety is our #1 priority here at the police department. So recognizing that a lot of traffic is going to get diverted. I think Dustin pointed out that our main detour route is going to be over to 9th Street, but we also recognize this is going to have an impact on the neighborhoods along Sheyenne Street, some of the the not so traveled routes, and I just want to assure everybody that we're going to do our best to make sure that we have a visible presence there, doing some directed patrols with our staff, and working with our contractors too, to make sure that ahead of time that we're addressing issues that might come up with some of the construction equipment and some of the debris that's going to have to be hauled out of there, to make sure that they're following city ordinance in terms of all of our truck routes and things like that, so they don't negatively impact kind of some of our side streets and some of our neighborhoods. So understanding this is going to be a time of year when kids are going to be back out and people are going to be out in their yards, and there's going to be a lot of people on bikes and people out moving around, you will see an increased presence from the police department in these neighborhoods. And finally, I just encourage anybody that here that's a resident that's impacted, if there's things that are of concern to you, whether it's traffic patterns or speeding, certainly call the police department anytime, 24 hours a day, and we'll do our best to address those issues. So, Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Lauren. So a couple of things, just we're winding down here, but a couple of things on the construction activities themselves. First of all, I do want to mention that our contractor is in the audience. We're not going to ask him to come up here and put himself on the spot, but Dakota Underground, they are the contractor. They have a representative, Bob Nelson, has been doing this for well longer than myself, and has certainly done a lot of work in West Fargo, understands the communication needs, and certainly will make themselves available as much as they can. Construction is fast-paced. You know, we do have to deal with changes. We have to, you know, so as we start getting into the actual work, sometimes we have to adjust the time schedule or adjust the detour route. Very commonly, we set up all the signs and we are out there a few days later optimizing it, and so we just want to, again, alert residents and businesses that these things are subject to change, but we will do our best to make every accommodation that we can. Noise, we do have a noise ordinance. I believe the period for a reasonable noise level is from 6 to 10 per ordinance. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the case. Our construction activities generally take place between 7 in the morning and 7 at night. But we do, you know, the contractors usually out there first thing in the morning around 6 o'clock, starting to get things, you know, equipment started up. So, but we are monitoring those situations and hopefully to make it as least of an impact as possible. And, you know, there are times where, because of whether it's weather or some other things, where we have to pause the project. Again, our highest priority is to get this thing done this year and to stay on schedule, but these things do come up, and we have to try to accommodate as best we can the Mother Nature and other factors that can influence a project like this. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tim just for a conclusion here, and then we'll get to the questions.
Just one last thing is we will have updates on westfargoND.gov. You can sign up for notifications. If you have any questions on how to do that, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help. We'll make sure that we update our front desk staff at City Hall on how to do that, but also just keep on going to engineering or planning or call Bernie. With that, I guess we'll open it up for questions that you guys might have. I should actually go back to that slide so you keep that in mind. I'm available for questions, and anybody on the panel here as well. Commissioner Olson.
Can you back up a couple slides, please? One more. Right there. So you've got the orange, the blue, and the green segments. Will they be able to be traveled at any time while it's being constructed, or are they going to be completely 100% off limits to vehicle traffic?
Good question. Thank you, Commissioner Olson. So the question, in case you didn't hear it, is while we're under construction in one of these phases, is it completely shut down to traffic, or can you pass through? And I will say the answer is, as we are working on a phase, so this first phase here, this orange part will be shut down, and there will be a detour around it. And that's what this blue line is representing, is that it's call it the local detour, but as we know that there's a lot of connectivity in this area. So, you know, for a graphic's sake, we have to put a map together and show something, but you can come up here and, for example, if you're northbound and you get to 7th Avenue and you live on the west side of Cheyenne, you're probably going to take a westbound turn and come this way. But again, the road will be fully closed.
Thank you.
And that goes for the other phases as well. So when we are in phase 2, the blue shaded area here will be shut down. Phase 3, the green shaded area will be shut down.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
So when it comes to, this is kind of centered around parking, but a couple different things regarding parking. So one, when construction was going on at the firm, we had a lot of construction workers parking in the one and only parking lot that's on that area, that's public, and also along the streets and whatnot. So question one is, where will construction workers park, or will they be bussed in? Because I'm sure it's going to take a lot of folks to work on this project throughout the whole stages. And then two, I know that, like Lauren had mentioned, a big push is to try to increase commercial businesses in this area. Where will customers park? Because with Berg Auto being taken down and Alley Commons going into that spot, that eliminates another area where folks could potentially park. So when we have like big events on Cheyenne, whether it's you know, the street fair or Westfest or the Toppers event, where will the general public be encouraged to park? And then on a daily basis, where will customers park when they're just shopping?
Well, thank you for the questions. I'm going to start with question one. I'm a little more geared to answer that one. As far as where will the construction crews park, there are staging areas throughout the project, but I would say predominantly they'll park where the majority of the activity is taking place. I don't foresee them parking in the residential neighborhoods off to the sides. You know, one of the differences between the building construction that took place is that our entire right-of-way now is turned into a construction site, but it's not entirely ripped up. So there should be enough staging area for them to get the job done within the project limits.
Okay.
If there is a specific time or need for them to park somewhere else momentarily, I guess that might take place, but it would be a brief, momentary time frame. As far as where all the other, you know, where our customers going to park during each of these phases, there are, you know, again, when phase 3, for example, is under construction and Furniture for Less customers are getting there, there's a way to still access their parking lot. I understand that some of the businesses rely heavily on the on-street parking, and that, of course, is going to be displaced, but I would, I guess I would have to say I'd have to get back to you on a more specific answer if I had a more specific question. You know, if the question is, where is business A's customer parking during this construction, I could probably help
Are you
answer
talking
that.
post-project, Nicole?
What's that?
Are you talking post-project?
No, during.
During, okay.
Well, both, technically both. So during construction, obviously, the VFW needs to have parking for their customers. Where would they be encouraged to park? For stage 1, I mean, that's just one example. But then afterwards, yes, there will be, I know on the plan there's different spots for street parking along Cheyenne, but for larger events or things like that, is there a plan or a concept so that people can park along Cheyenne somewhere, but maybe not all, like invade the whole residential neighborhood, is what I'm wondering.
Well, you know, again, I could probably get a better answer at a later time, but I will say that during construction, parking is going to become tight. I'm not going to shy away around that. When we are in this first phase and all that street parking goes away, that's a number of street parking that's not being provided somewhere else. You know, we can't, so I guess that's my short answer to that is it's going to get tight.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's a map that I could provide that show where we think additional parking could take place while phase 1 is under construction. But again, now that you know, if the VFW is the question, if they're reaching out and asking where are my customers going to park during construction, I think we could provide them with a map on here's some other locations.
Right. I think that would be great if, like, so during each stage you had a suggested parking area for customers that would frequent those particular areas, those businesses that are there. Otherwise, you're probably going to get a lot of people parking in the alley and along the residential neighborhood, and someone's gonna get their car blocked in somewhere, I'm sure, which is common, but.
Yep.
Thanks.
Berg Auto site too. So the Berg Auto site is, they're scheduling to tear that down and create a parking lot, temporary parking lot to be used for now. And then they also, before they fit up that first level of the new firm, they have to have that parking lot finished before they can get that CO, because there'll be additional parking needs. That was pegged to be a supporter of that Berg Auto parking lot.
Say that one more time.
So the Berg Auto building will be torn down.
Yeah.
And that will become a parking lot, and they have to have that parking lot prior to fitting up the first level of the firm building. That's not scheduled to be done anytime soon. We would anticipate using that parking lot during this construction project as an parking displacement of what we're losing on the street during those phases. So Lauren's working with the owner of that property to get that finished up here before
Okay.
construction gets too far.
Cool.
So that will help right now.
Mhm.
Long-term though, we had a TIF district where we were looking at a parking garage, not sure where that's gonna end up, but we do need to have long-term parking solutions. This is part of it, adding additional on-street parking to this street, add some spaces that we aren't kind of veering off in the residential areas.
Right, cool, thanks.
Ms. Royer. Tired.
But you were close.
All right.
I have two quick questions. The one is phase 2 in one of the earlier slides. I think it said something about August. Is there a potential maybe that it would wrap up in August? Or was that maybe just something I think I saw?
Yeah, so the question is, the timeline for phase 2, and, let's see.
I think you just had it, 1, 2, and 3.
So here, on this slide, it's showing a mid-July to mid-September. And I believe the previous slide, same thing, mid-July, mid-September. But the text here says the phase will be expected to last through the end of August. And the wording there is, we know we're going to get into September, we know we're going to probably be working through the end of August. It's possible that we could end the first part of September, but as far as the content that we have available right now, and I believe the project contract is set up the mid-September.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
I understood. Okay. And then my second question, and forgive me if this has already been discussed and I missed it, or I may have just missed it previously, but what are the plans for 2021 cruise nights then? Construction, and where are we at with those?
I will defer that question. The question that was just asked is, what is the plan for the 2021 cruise night events that we usually have downtown?
Thank you. So my understanding for 2021 Cruise Night is that it will be hosted at the Lights. And that is being run by West Fargo Events, and Toppers was heavily involved in that as well. If you have more questions about the details of that, I can get you that behind the scenes. I just don't want to get it wrong up here, so.
Well, is it planned to return then after this construction? Because I think a lot of residents are they usually have questions about cruise night and.
The answer is yes, absolutely, and in our design, we also were very conscious of what cruise night would look like after the road diet is done, so it's in the design.
Okay.
I do want to add, if anybody on Zoom has any questions, all you need to do is raise your hand, and they'll notify us of those questions. You can also type things into the chat box as well. So far, we don't have any questions from Zoom, so if you got one, send them our way. Any other questions? Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I got a few questions here.
Are they Dustin related?
Well done, Tim.
I just wanted to get him up there.
All right, so we're talking a lot about safety. I know a lot of residents have brought up the intersection of 5th and Sheyenne on the west side. Have you guys done anything with the design? I know we've had a lot of conversations with it, but I know a few days ago, my wife had a near miss, pulling out because of the parked cars and stuff there. So I'm curious about that. That's the first question.
Okay. So the question is, the design on 5th Street, or 5th Avenue, I'm sorry, which again, it's a little hard to see in this map, but yes, there were some changes made as this project evolved. And then beyond that, I mean, I could send you some more detailed information after the meeting, but I will say that yes, this design has changed since it was originally posted. In fact, I think originally there was a couple other parking stalls in here, and so we did remove a couple of those to make the site distance better, improving the safety concern.
We have height restrictions on plantings there too for the site triangle as well.
Yeah. So if you didn't hear that, Tim mentioned that our streetscaping does have height restrictions at these intersections to make sure that there's good visibility.
Okay, cool. And then kind of on a related note, are the rest of the intersections with bump outs set up kind of in a similar way where the visibility is kind of taken into better account than what was built there a couple of years ago? Or on 5th and Sheyenne?
Well, the way I'll answer that is we do have strict requirements when it comes to the site distance with the DOT. And again, as Tim just mentioned, our streetscaping design team that looked at this, we're certainly cognizant of making sure we have safe intersections, and so things like restricting the height of plantings that will go into those intersections or those landscaped areas, their heights are limited. So yes, certainly safety has been a focal point here, and I think these intersections they're certainly meeting the state and federal guidelines, and I believe they're as safe as we can make them.
Okay. I have a couple other questions. So one of them just kind of popped in my head when we were talking about safety and the local, traffic, getting to the businesses, especially on Morrison, getting into the alley, getting into the parking lot, between the firm and whatever, Pioneer Place. The intersection at 5th and Morrison, I think my wife has brought it up, I mentioned to you
Several times.
Bernie, about, I think there's a yield sign there now, but during some of the higher traffic areas, it might make sense to have a stop sign, so like Cruise Nights West Fest, perhaps during a project like this, where it's going to get people to kind of slow down a little bit. There are a lot of kids in the neighborhood. This is going to be, safer, so I was wondering if that's a possibility.
And you said that's on 5th and
Morrison.
Morrison?
And it's a weird intersection. It's an offset, kind of like how 6th goes across Sheyenne. So
that's certainly something that we can look at and appreciate those opportunities. As we get out here, there might be some little things that generally work, but this is an opportunity to make a change if we're going to be out here. And so yeah, we can certainly take a look at that with Public Works Department, see if we can swap out a yield sign for a stop sign.
Okay. And then last question. So 2nd Avenue East, 2nd Street East, it's kind of a bump out, kind of similar intersection to what's not on the map here, but it's kind of similar setup to what this is. And I know last, number of years we've driven through in the winter, and it's kind of a one vehicle path to get there. What's the plan for snow removal so we can have safe passage in and out of all these streets on and off of Sheyenne here? Do we have that yet, or not yet?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a representative from the Public Works Department here to answer that. Again, we can certainly get back to you with a question like that.
I just want to make sure if there's...
Want to chat about the street crew that they have?
Oh,
So, our commission recently approved adding a crew that's sort of a stormwater crew to help decommission the lagoons. That same crew in the wintertime is going to be utilized to help support downtown maintenance. So we're going to have more people that are going to be able to take care of this a little bit differently. It's not a type of road where you can just drop a maintainer down and cruise right through it.
Yep.
It's going to require some hauling. And so I believe maybe the first couple of years where we're kind of learning this new street project that we've had downtown because of these developments, it's going to get a lot better. And any comments like that will help us become better. So those bump outs, the width of it is 24 wide, usually. You know, 24, very comfortable in the summertime, but as that starts to squeeze in, if you're not taking care of what's on the sides, will get a lot tighter. So we just need to go through and clear that out, and we have people that can help do that. So appreciate the comment. Yes, sir. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I've got a quick question here. When you have this detour set up and it's coming from 7th Avenue to locally back to on 3rd Avenue up to Sheyenne Street, the question I have is when you're doing all this construction, where is all these trucks and equipment gonna go down? Are they gonna go right down 3rd Avenue or what?
Well, they'll have the right-of-way available to them, the construction on this project. So typically, I assume they're not coming off and on. They're gonna be able to have that road open to them to utilize to go up and down. So Sheyenne Street is gonna be their main source.
Okay, so basically, a lot of the equipment that's gonna be utilized for the project is coming down Cheyenne
They'll be
Street.
within the
It's not
project.
gonna come down 3rd Avenue or 2nd Avenue or something like that.
I can't guarantee that there's not gonna be a little bit of this and that coming off and on to an easier route or something like that, but I assume primarily they're gonna be utilizing the right-of-way that they have available to them.
They have a over-dimensional purpose. Yeah, so that's certainly a great question. Just for those that maybe didn't hear it, is during the time where we are detouring traffic, how do the construction crews get in and out here with their equipment? And like Tim said, the equipment will be still transported through Sheyenne Street, you know, so the contractor will just open up their barrier, come through that way. But, you know, we are also working on these side streets, and so there might be a time where, or two where a piece of equipment is going down that road. But again, the intent is to keep all the primary activity within the work zone. But I just don't want to say I don't want to guarantee out there that you won't see a piece of equipment or a
Oh, no,
truck.
I understand that, but, you know, if we're talking caps and all that other kind of stuff coming down there, that road was never built to handle that.
Absolutely. Nope, and they are given a permit to drive down. Even Sheyenne Street itself here is not a truck route, so they have to get a special permit to utilize it.
Thank you.
I was just gonna make a quick comment that the, like, streetscape looks really cool, and I'm really excited for the things that we'll be able to put there, like public art and, different furniture pieces and stuff like that. I think that'll be a really nice addition to the downtown area, and it'll really help, like Lauren was saying, it'll really help kind of, complement the different downtown events that we have, like the street fair and like cruise night. I think they'll be really great. So my question then is there a timeline for these things to get put in place, or are these kind of like planned later?
Lauren, do you want to?
Sure.
The question for those that maybe didn't hear it, though, is the streetscaping components, part of what you see on the screen, are they planned for now or later, right? That sum it up?
Yep.
Thanks for that question, Nicole. So the actual pavement and all that, of course, will be done as part of the project. And actually, some of the underground work that I didn't mention earlier that's really neat, that will help businesses too, hopefully, is we've included fiber optic cables as well underground. So if we do have businesses in the future that need high-speed internet, that will be available, and also to help feed things like kiosks, for example. And it just gives our IT department a whole lot more flexibility with things like that, and it helps give us flexibility with the things we can come up with, our downtown businesses and other organizations, about what can go in those creative spaces. So what I would say is with this project, just getting it done this summer is laying the groundwork for us to come up with what are the things we can add next year, probably. Right now, my department is trying to investigate, you know, what are potential kiosks for wayfinding, talking about events, upcoming events, things like that, that don't detract away from businesses, but rather draw people down. So that's something we can look into. And also public art. I'm sure Tim can help speak to this as well, but through the planning department, we have a public art advisory committee, too, that the city commission has just recently set up. So we have a route for public art to go through, and that committee can engage with our downtown businesses on sculpture art. So as we gain more traction down here and we have those opportunities available, we can keep those conversations going. I would say with timeline, I would hope that maybe next year we could have some things actually installed in that streetscape.
Great.
That end, there are actual planter benches that are coming in with this and other streetscape amenities that you see here that will be in place when this project ends, but the public art part is part we're working on and want input definitely from the public businesses. Commission President Dardis, do you want to say anything, or did you have a question?
Could you go back to the map that has the orange on the Cheyenne Street, please? Could you share with the with our gathering here? You had it there, right there, back one, right there. The bump outs that go to the east, the construction there, would you share with the public what the purpose of going down those streets are? Is that water, sewer, all those types of things, or the surface road condition? Please share why we're going back into those neighborhoods.
Okay, great question. So for those that didn't hear, the question specifically is, why are we doing some of the work on the side streets that we've shown? And yes, there's the combination of the utility tie-in. So as we're, for example, if we're replacing a water main or a sewer pipe to get to a logical connection point, that's part of the reason there. The other part is it also is an opportunity to add some parking. So for example, as you can see on this particular map, this is Third, and we are able to get some additional parking here on Third. There's additional parking shown here on Fourth. On the south side of the road, it's diagonal. On the north side of the road, it's parallel. So again, kind of a combination of facilitating additional parking and also making utility connections. The other objective is, we know that these other areas are going to have to get reconstructed at some point. And when they do have to be reconstructed, we are trying to set it up so that they don't have to close down Sheyenne Street. So for example, in the future when we have to replace 2nd Avenue, we don't have to close down Sheyenne Street to make the repairs or replacements done on 2nd Avenue. We've set ourselves now far enough apart where we can do that and not impede that flow on Sheyenne Street. So again, multitude of reasons, but those are the three primary.
The most important part of that conversation is I wanted the public to know about additional parking. We are concerned about, overflow parking on big events in Morrison Street and all those other, great neighborhoods that this will help facilitate that to some degree. The other thing is that, that Chief Otterness is here with us this evening, and the gentleman in the red shirt here, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but the great question that you asked, as well as Mr. Anderson, about the traffic patterns on 9th and that type of thing. That'll be closely monitored. We have 3 commissioners here with you this evening, and we'll all be keeping a watchful eye on where the patterns are, where the construction equipment's going, and maybe some of those speeds and things like that. And again, address maybe a question that Mr. Anderson had earlier, also with regard to some of those intersections on Morrison Street. That will be monitored. You rest assured of that. Safety has got to be our top priority for our residential neighborhoods while we're going through this.
Okay, one last check on Zoom. Do we have any questions at all? No? Anybody? Ms. Schreier?
Thank you. I have a quick question. So speaking of parking, where is that proposed project sitting? The city buying the houses and raising them to use that area for?
I'll leave that to Ms. Orchard to answer. Thank you.
Being discussed.
The question by Ms. Schreier was a question on the 5 homes that were discussed previously and reported by the